So in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke, there are 3 temptations given to Jesus by Satan. The first has to do with turning stones into bread. And I suppose you could define bread as food, shelter, and clothing. To have all of this, you need money. Money gives you power, power gives you security. You need this. And anyone who says you don't need any of this, they're just idiots. So this is the initial pillar of life. Whoever you are, whatever you are, is built on food, shelter, and clothing. This is the horizontal line. And for those of you who pay attention to the first temptation, and remember what temptation is. Temptation is you're minding your own business. For the most part, life is okay. And you get a piece of advertisement. And then a conflict begins to happen inside you. I'm doing fine, but all of a sudden there is also this. It's like you're having Zachary's pizza. You've ordered the pizza, but you have a family coming in. Their kid hates pizza, but they bought him some Indian food. You look at the box and it's chicken tikka masala, rice and garlic bread, and some mixed vegetables. And all of a sudden you say, maybe we should go there and have some Indian food instead of Zachary's. That is what a temptation is. And so what you have is Jesus is a man who is confident, who is self-sufficient. And Jesus comes down to offer him a piece of advertisement. Now, what usually happens for most of us, and remember, the only way that you will never, ever be tempted by a piece of advertisement, you really have to like where you are. And you really have to like who you are. So remember, if you don't know who you are, where you are, and if you don't like who you are and where you are, you will always be tempted. Always. There is another thing you need to understand. You have temptations on a small scale, you have temptations on a big scale. A small scale is you have to take an elective to graduate. It's either philosophy or history. You come to class, you realize it's me, you say yuck. You drop the class, you take history. If on the other hand, you're in love with Socrates and you just want to do philosophy, that's a thing you want to do for the rest of your life, which means that you're just going to take philosophy and you're not interested in any other class. The only thing you're looking for is, will this guy inspire me? Is he going to be innovative, creative? That's the only thing. So on a small scale and in the little world that you and I live, temptations are there all the time. And are we going to fall victim to them? Absolutely. If you have big questions, like you get to a place where you say, who am I? When you're at the age of 40 or 50, you're not going to let a man or a woman or a piece of advertisement telling you who you are. You're not going to be sold a piece of advertisement. You've been there, you've done that, now you're looking for things from within. So when we talk about Jesus being tempted, you're talking about a man who has big questions. The sort of temptation now Satan throws at him is, look at people out there. Life is tough, it's burdensome, it's stressful. It really is. And you're here just to make your physical life a little better. All for what? Food, shelter, and clothing. Now, you may love your girlfriend, but if you can't give her food, if you can't give her shelter, if once in a while you can't get her like flowers or a dress or something, so she'll leave you. She's not there because you're good looking, that you have this wealth of wisdom within you. None of us have that much depth. So money, power, security. Now ask yourself, how much time do you need to spend in a day to secure money so that you can have enough power, security? I'm not talking about living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not talking about one of those like gurus on YouTube who tells you live in the moment. I'm not talking about this from 10 to 10:15. You have to worry about the fact that you're going to get old, that once in a while you're going to get sick. You need health care, which means if you have a job, you need to kiss your boss's behind every single day so he doesn't fire you. How much time do you think people spend doing this? 2 years? 5 years? 50 years? So most of our life is lived in the iron and bronze, places of pleasure, iron, and bronze being a relative amount of power. Do you know how difficult it is to walk away from this unless you're very rich or just very stupid? Now, imagine that you as a man or a woman, and if you go back to Abraham Maslow, you need to understand that it is true that you have food, it is true that you have shelter, but the truth is, eating alone by yourself every single day is not fun. You may live in a mansion, Montclair in the woods, but if you live alone and eating food alone, this shelter will be like a prison for you. You will hate going home. Now, given the fact that you have the physical aspects, what you're looking for now is that the second temptation, which is one of psychology, where Satan looks at Jesus and says, listen, it is true that people don't have enough food, or their shelter is not as interesting or pleasant or comfortable, and they need money to buy clothes and this and that. But once they have amassed all of this, once they have secured food, shelter, and clothing, their brain becomes calcified. It's like once you get married and once you have children, you don't have time to do anything. Read, engage in conversations, run into your friends and chat with them about things that are meaningful. It's all revolving around your husband or your wife, around your kids, the school they gotta go to, the friends they got, how much money you need to make in order to kind of just survive. And you realize all of your conversation is just meaty. It's connected to your physical body. There is no spiritual. There is no intellectual. Everything is in the service of satisfying food, shelter, and clothing. And this is tough, man. Now, your condition is far worse because you are born in America. You are an American. This is capitalism. So everything is 10 times as difficult. In the Middle East, you buy your house outright. You owe zero to the banks. You buy your car outright. You don't owe anything to anyone. And because it's a third world poor country, it's not industrialized, your foundation is religion, philosophy. That's what you just talk about. I mean, in Palestine, all you talk about is justice. It doesn't mean you don't have fun once in a while where it's mindless, but your physical condition won't allow too much fun out there. And in fact, if you were to have too much fun, other people will shame you because there are other things at stake. So in a culture such as this, food, shelter, and clothing, they're always in jeopardy. It's like people going behind closed doors, playing some games with the stock market, and you will experience the thing that happened here in 2008. Everybody loses their house, okay? They lose their marriage, their kids are abandoned, and they're now depressed. They have nothing. Whose fault is it? Well, some greedy people out there. So remember, in this system, security is very, very difficult to find. Now, let's just say you have the security. Well, there comes a point in your life where the second temptation comes in, which is people are bored. Can you, Jesus, do something to inspire people? Like what, he asks. Well, jump from a building, jump from the tower building across his classroom. And just as you're about to hit the ground, 2 angels will appear and just grab you and hold you and kiss you. And people will say, oh my God, this really, truly is the man of God. And you realize a second problem, which is the following. You have enough food in your life and you have a beautiful house, but psychologically now you have poverty. It's not so much physical anymore, it's psychological. You need someone to break bread with. You need a father or a mother or a companion or a friend or a dog. You just hate being alone. Your value goes down, you get depressed, you have zero confidence, you're just undigestible to people out there. It is true that your mom may come to your house and say, son, why are you depressed? You have a nice job, you have this, you have that, you should be happy. What she doesn't see is that, yes, on the surface, you have all the physical securities. Your problem is you just need someone to walk into your life, to mesmerize you, to give you some excitement. Now, what you're dealing with is psychology. Now, let's just say you do have a companion. Now, here's the thing you need to know about the horizontal. There is the story that comes to us from Alcibiades. Anyways, he has the story about Zeus, that Zeus created human beings for one simple reason, so that human beings can worship him, which is really good. So what happened was that Zeus creates a human being, and this human being is half masculine and half feminine. In other words, this human being is perfect. And when you're perfect, who do you worship? Yahweh? Jesus? Zeus? No, when you're perfect, you worship yourself. Zeus comes to realize his mistake. Why did I have to create such a perfect entity? So you know what he does? Because Zeus is not being worshipped anymore. He cuts this human being in half and throws one half in the Middle East and the other half in America. And so he says, as long as these two halves never meet, they'll always remain unhappy and discontent. And what happens is, because we need companions, what you'll do is you just go around, meet people, say hello to them, get married to them, but they're not really your other half. So what happens, there's a good amount of grinding that needs to take place. You fight all the time, or maybe you disagree on things, and then you have to fight, and then you have to make peace, and then you have to compromise, and all these other things happen. Do you know how long and how much space it occupies inside you when you have a disagreement with your companion? When you suffer from loneliness and depression and betrayals? Add to it the fact that meaty life, the iron life, in the end, the only reflection of yourself you have is, I'm all meat and no spirit. And you want some excitement in your life. And so you go out there spending a good amount of hours, a good amount of your youth, trying to find something that will inspire and excite you. Now, let's say you have a great companion, and let's say your life, your physical life is great. Now you run into the third problem, the third temptation, which is the politics of life. You walk around town and there is homelessness. And it's a worthy cause to fight for these people to get housing, to get medical care. But there are moments of discontent where your physical life, emotional, psychological life, political life happen to be relatively okay. And you have a weekend just to yourself where you sit and you say, okay, you know what, today I'm just going to read the 5 stages of the soul. Or I'm going to read A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to read Jean-Jacques Rousseau about education. But it doesn't mean anything. Now, the life of, and silver is about relationships. So the life of iron, bronze, and silver put you in a place that's generally called the life of a sleepwalker. Now, it doesn't mean that you're asleep in the pursuit of food, shelter, and clothing. It doesn't mean that you're asleep in the pursuit of bringing something to awaken your psychological life, inspiration, excitement. It doesn't mean that you're blind when it comes to the politics of life, the injustice, the cruelties of human beings upon another, and the politicians. Now, down here, you have no choice but to ask small questions. What's my grade? Honey, I'm sorry for having said that to you. What do I need to do to make things up? I just got fired. Is there somewhere I can go and work? Small questions. And so you realize most of us just are born and die only having asked small questions, which is okay. I'm not trying to demonize this because it is a good life. It is a good life if you can find a good school for your kids. It's a great life if you can find a companion. It's a great life if you can take care of your parents. It's a good life. Now, once in a while, something really strange and awful happens to some people, not all people, just some people. And as always, I don't know how it happens, but it happens nevertheless. You have everything down here, and one morning you wake up, say at 2 in the morning, and your kids are asleep, your companion is snoring away. And like Tolstoy, you begin to ask some existential question. And by existential questions, I mean, it's a set of questions where you ask about the meaning of your life in the grand scheme of things. Not what your life means as a husband, not what your life means as a father, but what your life means. What are you going to do in the next 20, 30 years of your life? Why is it that you begin to review your life and you don't find much value in it? Now, most of us don't have the resources. We're not really equipped to wrestle with those questions. So you just take some sleeping pills and you wake up 10 in the morning and you feel fine. Or maybe you smoke, or maybe you drink, or maybe you just go to the garage and bang your head against the wall. Now, there are some people for whom these questions just refuse to go away. They just linger. And throughout the day, even though you're doing your horizontal physical life, trying to find inspiration out there, trying to be good to your kids, to your companion, trying to keep your job, make some money, pay the mortgage, all that. In the background, there is this sound, just rewinding and just replaying over and over and over again. What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? You look into society and it can't satisfy you. You look at your wife or your husband, they can't satisfy you. You look at your kids, you love them, but they don't really mean much anymore. I don't know why that is. Maybe you've kind of just realized that, okay, so the kids are going to go to school, turn out to be like me, right? They'll get a master's or a PhD, maybe. And one morning they'll wake up and they realize their life has been a complete waste. Maybe. Or maybe you just happen to be of a positive temperament and you never think about these things in this way. The big questions of life begin to attack you on a regular basis. And it is at this stage that you begin to move upwards, vertical. And it's a very gradual, it's a very slow progress because there are lots of things you have to overcome before you can actually kind of figure things out a little bit. So you get a call. So if down here in the bronze and the iron, bronze and silver, you get calls about what do I need to do to make more money? What do I need to do to buy a bigger house? Or what do I need to do to make my life more psychologically, emotionally exciting and inspiring? Or what do I need to do to make peace with my wife? Okay. These are all calls that you get. This other call that you get when you want to go vertical, upwards, it really no longer has to do with the meat of your life. And your intellect is no longer serving the meat of your life. Because if you want to make more money, you have to use your brain. You look at your environment, physical environment, you have two bosses, then you have to be cunning and you have to be political. Do I go to the boss who's mean-spirited, or do I go to the boss with whom I have some things in common? If your wife is angry with you, say, okay, what do I need to do to make her like me? So you go to Trader Joe's or the cemetery, you steal some flowers, you take it to her, and you say, honey, let's go out tonight. And you take it to In-N-Out. This other call, and you don't know why it's there. It just happens. And it can happen organically or it can be manufactured. Organically in the sense that, I don't know, certain events happen in your life where you come to realize most of what you've been questioning is ridiculous and stupid. Important, but nevertheless ridiculous. Or a Socrates walks into Plato's life and makes all the things that Plato believed in irrelevant. Now, what happens when you get a call, there is a tiny little Morpheus that appears from here. And you happen to be on your way to finding if there is Neo inside you or not. So Morpheus advertises a specific kind of a dream that you are more than you think you are. You're just not meat. There is something spiritual. There is something creative, inspiring about you. And you don't have to make this spiritual or religious. They just say you're a gifted pianist. You just don't know it. Now, what Morpheus asks Neo to do is meet me at Adams Street Bridge. Remember what a bridge is? It's you're walking from one world to another. Adam happens to be the father of humanity. Now, the problem with this sort of a call is when they come to pick you up, you realize that the call is going to make some demands on you. That maybe you shouldn't care so much about your job. You shouldn't care so much about just cheesy, ridiculous entertainments. And you shouldn't care. And when I say you shouldn't, it just happens organically. You begin to care less as time passes. As this call increases, these calls begin to diminish in intensity and interest. Now, what happens in the call, because now you get a brand new set of questions, is first, if you've seen the movie, The Matrix, it's raining. Second, it's dark. And there are moments you want to get out, as Neo tried to in the car. He opens the door and he says, what the hell is this? I'm going to go out. He opens the door. There is not a single soul in the street. See, here, if you have questions about your work, about how to find entertainment, or how to take care of your companion, your kids, there are books you can refer to. There are all sorts of signposts out there for you. You're not going to be completely lost. Here, there is no one there, because the questions are different and the answers are going to be different. There are no signposts. And you have to trust a guy named Morpheus, and you don't know much about him. You don't know his past. You don't know his intentions. You have no idea where you're going. Here, at least, these things, you can see and taste with your five senses. And they are beautiful. They're like a GPS to your life. Here, it's a leap of faith. Now, the problem with getting the call and the call bringing about all these questions, you enter the second stage, and it's called the struggle. Once you break through and go towards the vertical, there's a good amount of power that you're going to lose. You know, right now, many of us in this classroom have a companion. Now, you may not like your companion, but you have a companion nevertheless. You know, when you go home, he or she is going to be there, you're going to sit there, you're going to have some food, maybe watch some TV, you know, maybe have a fight, a disagreement of sorts. You're going to struggle because you don't understand your questions. You're going to struggle because you don't understand your discontent. You're going to look down here and say, I have everything that a human being would ever want in a lifetime. What is wrong with me? A call by itself, it doesn't live in a vacuum. It brings about guilt. It brings about shame. It brings about anger. You have to get rid of all this, or at least you have to make peace with these emotions. And you're going to struggle. Now, if you happen to be married, for example, man, you better pretend well as you're moving towards the vertical. Because if your companion comes to realize you don't care as much about the life you've created with him or her for the past like 10, 15, 20 years, you don't want that person to wake up from this dream that you've created for them.